What's up, everybody? I'm Jason Visenberg.
And I'm Michael Visenberg.
Welcome to Viseland. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. If you can see our faces, that means you are watching us on YouTube. If you cannot see our faces, that means you are listening to us on one of the many podcast platforms in which you can find Viseland. So if you want to see us, always come on over to YouTube. We're happy to have the same show, but you can see our faces, see a little, expression reaction. Sometimes I have different jerseys up in the back. You never know. But if you're just listening to us on the go, thank you so much. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it, you can find it. Just search Viseland and you will be guided to our podcast.
Or search our last name.
Visenberg is always
search Viseland. You may not be guided to our podcast, unfortunately. Search Visenberg, and you can find us on anchor.fm. But we are available on podcast platforms and on YouTube.
Amazon, TuneIn. If you have a Tesla, you can listen to us on TuneIn. If you have an Alexa, you can listen to us on Amazon. We are here, but we have to stop and talk first about what just transpired. We are recording this on Tuesday, March 30th, 2021, and something just went down that was pretty insane, and that is UCLA getting in from the play-in to the Final Four.
UCLA, who has already played 5 games. It's absolutely wild. That was a great game. UCLA left it very close. Johnny Juzang carrying that team through the first half.
I think it was but net, I think he had like 55% of the points. Like he had like 29 points out of like the
51
or something. Yeah, like it was crazy.
It was like an old school, like kind of like Princeton beating UCLA back in like 1995, 96 or one of those years. It was kind of a throwback game. A lot of missing going on. A lot of defense, you should say, or I guess you would say. But yeah, UCLA has had a fantastic tournament run so far. Kind of going with the theme of the Pac-12 being the slept-on Conference of Champions. And 3 teams in the Elite Eight. We did predict that. No, we didn't. We definitely
a quarter of the Final Four here. So it's like they're doing their thing, but unfortunately, on the other end of the Pac-12, that whole USC UCLA fantasy of like, oh, they never both played in the the Final Four.
Crazy.
Still not happening because Gonzaga,
taking care of business.
And Drew Timme doing the muscle thing against Evan Mobley. You're like, oh my god, that's
I know. He's well over top.
He's got some adrenaline going.
I thought Evan played pretty well, but Drew Timme played fantastic. Jalen Suggs played fantastic. It was like an off shooting night for Kispert, and still Jalen Suggs with the 18 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. I believe Evan Mobley had somewhere in the he finished with 17 points, 3 assists, no blocks. Kind of surprising, but still a very good game from him as well. And and then the 2 games before, we had Houston beating Oregon State and Baylor beating I think getting their toughest game so far in beating Arkansas. So that'll be the other side of the bracket. So it's Baylor going up against Houston and Gonzaga going up against UCLA, a Final Four that everyone really predicted. And if there was a single bracket that predicted this Final Four, like, good for them.
Yeah. Well, the Baylor Gonzaga, like, I definitely like see like probably a very high.
Baylor Gonzaga for sure.
Houston
possibility.
Still a little fringe, like, even though they're a 2 seed, but like, they're like,
had some people predict them.
The
UCLA part. The UCLA part was where it got a little crazy.
Yeah.
And like, if you're predicting UCLA, are you predicting Gonzaga and Baylor? Like, you're probably going out on a limb there, right? Like a 1-1-2-11. Like, that's a crazy Final Four.
You could be a very, John Wooden purist and think that UCLA is still the finest form of basketball being played. I don't. Maybe it's Bill
likely a UCLA alumnus if you're doing this.
Maybe you're Bill Walton, but then he also had 5 other Pac-12 teams in his Final Four. But either way, like kind of like cool little thing for UCLA is they're starting to get like their Nike deal coming in next year. They're getting some good recruiting.
Jordan.
Yeah.
This week. Yeah.
And then they're getting good recruiting, and then it's like they have this Final Four now.
Possibly good recruiting.
Well, yeah, well that obviously.
Peyton Watson is still 50-50. Yeah, it was very interesting. One other thing with Houston that I noticed, and I'm wondering if anybody has an answer to this. I still haven't heard yet, but Houston played all double-digit seeds to get to the Final Four. So they started off, it was 2-15, Cleveland State. They played Rutgers at 10. They played Syracuse at 11, and then they played Oregon State at 12.
Wow.
I thought that was, just very intriguing. And like you and I can both probably make this prediction. We're going with a Baylor Gonzaga final championship. And I feel like it's not neither game is going to be close. That's my hot take, quote unquote.
I mean, I think Gonzaga is clicking very, very well, and like UCLA, it's like it was a very single-handed effort tonight. Really, Central was like I don't think they had any points off the bench. I'm pretty sure, or it was pretty sparse. So it was.
I don't know if anybody scored besides Johnny Juzang.
Sorry,
I'm totally kidding, but no, they had no points off the bench. Jason, you're absolutely correct. They got 11 points from Tiger Campbell, Jules Bernard, Jaime Jaquez, and Cody Riley with 4-point games. And that's how they got their 51.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. And like again, 51 points is not that much, but yeah, I think Baylor Gonzaga, the matchup we wanted to see earlier in the year that we didn't get.
That's what we're hoping for. That's what we're really hoping for.
So hopefully that can go down. So let's see what happens. And then other than that, we had the trade deadline has passed. Any quick takes on some wins, losses there?
No, let's just skip over that. And I think we'll see how that plays on later. This is all for basically people who are about to go to the NBA this week. Let's talk about Geico Nationals and the website that I work for, Pro Insight. They had a really great primer for the Geico Nationals that are actually happening. The playing games for that take place tomorrow, and you have one moment. You have Pace Academy against Oak Hill Academy and Prolific Prep against La Lumiere tomorrow. And then the real action gets going on April 1st. You have the quarterfinals, and that's Sunrise Christian versus the winner of Prolific or La Lumiere, IMG Academy against Milton Academy, and then Mont Verde against the winner of Pace, Oak Hill, and then you have Arizona Compass Prep against Wasatch Academy out of Utah. This tournament features 6 McDonald's All-Americans. The semifinals will be on April 2nd, and the finals will be before the Final Four earlier in the day. But yeah, always a great event. It's produced a number of top NBA players have come from this event, and a really good chance it'll be on the ESPN family of networks. The first 2 games will be on ESPN Plus. After that, I think it goes up in
ESPN.
Yeah, exactly. So ESPNU for the quarterfinals, ESPN2 for the semifinals, and then the final will be earlier in the day on ESPN.
Hey, that's a money time to watch ESPN. So.
Yeah. And the overwhelming favorite, I believe, is still Mont Verde Academy, which has a number of players that will hear their names called in the draft this season. But yeah, it still has a great group of talent. And then Sunrise Christian, IMG, Arizona Compass Prep, Wasatch, just a ton of great players. I believe all of those schools have McDonald's All-Americans as well, or at least somebody in that relative vicinity. So yeah, just a lot of talent in this tournament, and it should be a lot of fun to watch. So tune in and see some top players and some players I'm sure we'll be talking about as 2022 NBA draft prospects.
Definitely, and especially considering this year as well, we don't get to see like a Hoop Summit or McDonald's All-American game. So this is your chance to catch them.
Yeah.
Catch them
But
now.
one game we do get to see, actually, that was just announced today that had a great list of players and a number of players that were selected to the McDonald's All-American game is the Iverson Roundball Classic. And I believe they're doing that May 7th and 8th in Memphis. They're, I think, having limited fans, and hopefully it will be streaming or showing the game somewhere. But yeah, they just announced those rosters today. So if you want a game to look forward to that's like a high school all-star game featuring players like Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, AJ Griffin, a number of top players, the Iverson Roundball Classic just released their rosters today.
Nice. Awesome. Well, and speaking of things that just came out was the announcement of the actual NBA draft. We now actually have a date to place.
Yeah. It is July 29th is the tentative date of the NBA draft, meaning that the NBA finals should be over by then. So yeah, we will see what happens. And they have a tentative date for the combine. I believe it's June 22nd or somewhere around there. Or no, that's the lottery. That's the lottery. And yeah, so the lottery I think will be June 22nd. And yeah, they're announcing combine that they're doing, I think the thing up really this year. And we wanted to do an update on the NBA draft and just kind of give an idea of where we kind of see, we're trying to look at this from the NBA perspective. And so this is not like our list of guys, but of course every NBA mock draft list is kind of influenced by your relative board. But yeah, we're just trying to give an idea of where we see guys getting drafted right now. This will absolutely change. But yeah, we wanted to do an update of mock draft. We teased it last week, and yeah, we're just kind of hoping to give a little updated view of our initial list that we came out with. How many months ago, Jason?
It was a couple, probably like towards the beginning of the college basketball season for sure. So
that might be, yeah,
definitely some resumes, some sample has changed, but again, like these things are so fluid even between now and to the draft. Like really, unless you're like one of the people that tweets it 2 seconds before it happens, a lot can go to change. But just to kind of lay some, kind of ground rules, this is just going to be focused on the lottery and using the website Tankathon, coming up with that. It'll randomize that order for you. So
yeah, I randomized the order earlier, and there are definitely going to be some changes, but I think a lot of the usual suspects who have been near the top of the lottery. And yeah, just going to give a brief overview. And yeah, just ready when you are, Jace.
Yeah, so starting, the random, but, definitely possible. Number one pick is going to a team that is definitely in a very rebuild mode that doesn't really have like an identity at this time. Talking the Houston Rockets going up first.
You're talking about the team that is being built around Kevin Porter Jr. currently? Yes.
I
thought that was a great trade, and I'm really hoping that he is a part of their rebuilding future. But yes, we saw that the Houston Rockets went in full rebuild mode. And when I did the randomized lottery, they have the first pick. I think the player who is the overwhelming favorite and most likely to go number one in this draft and is number one on, I believe, both of our boards, Chase. I'll just throw that out there. Cade Cunningham. And Cade did not necessarily, I think you're going to see a theme here in that a lot of these guys didn't necessarily get their stock boosted or really changed in any way because of the NCAA tournament. And some of them had pretty unceremonious endings to the NCAA tournament. I think the discourse around Cade Cunningham was the fact that he went 9 for 34 in his 2 NCAA tournament games. Didn't necessarily have a fantastic game against Liberty. That game maybe being like a little closer than you would have wanted it to be. And then
They lose to Oregon State.
I was going to kind of, gussy it up a little bit. They ran into the buzzsaw that was Oregon State, the buzzsaw that was the Beavers of Oregon State. And I thought he actually had some really nice moments in this game. But the crazy thing is he finished 3 of 15 from 2 in those games, 6 of 19 from 3. But yeah, you still saw just so much of the talent. And then throughout the year, Cade Cunningham is somebody that you can put the ball in his hands, and he's going to do some really good things. The shooting that he showed throughout this season was just fantastic. Like his ability to create off the bounce and just shoot in a variety of ways. And also just his strength in getting to the basket. I thought he played some really great defense at times as well. And he did have the negative assist to turnover ratio. I think a lot of that was the fact that he was being like doubled and triple teamed. And another thing that I want to point out is that if you look at the highest usage players on Oklahoma State, they had really bad turnover percentages. So I wonder if that kind of played a part as well. But yeah, he definitely needs to tighten up his handle. And he doesn't have the all-world burst or anything like that, but he's really strong. He does have a good handle for his size. He is a really good passer, and I always felt like he would set some guys up and they wouldn't necessarily come through as much as you would hope they would for Oklahoma State. But yeah, I thought Cade overall had a fantastic year and did what he needed to stay as the number 1 player in this draft class. And he is a very exciting NBA prospect.
Yeah, just a big lead guard. He just has like a lot of intrigue there of like what he can bring. So yeah, definitely he has not faltered, because again, he was number 1 in our mock last time, just for some comparison. And then moving on, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder coming in, the kings of having draft capital. They're getting that bounce of the lottery. They are getting that number 2 pick. What direction would you see them going?
Yeah, I still feel like that number 2 pick is going to likely be Evan Mobley. And I'm almost thinking like, I know people always act like it's team dependent, and it is to an extent, but I think that, like Evan Mobley is just, he's a really, really talented prospect. I know that he is a big man and that everybody talks about the diminished value of drafting a center. There are indeed centers are players that you usually can get for pretty decent replacement value.
But there's different types of centers too. Like
exactly.
Yeah, he's not the big old school like lumbering guy. Like he's pretty nimble.
Yeah. That's exactly the point with Evan Mobley. One is defensive versatility, and he just has fantastic lateral movement. Not only that, but he is just great in terms of defensive awareness as well, and baiting guards and baiting shooters into block shots or good contests. And then the other thing is he is an incredible processor on both ends of the floor. Like he just can make really pinpoint passes. And then marked with that really nice athleticism and good touch. He may not have shot like out of this world from the free throw line, and certainly wasn't like a crazy volume shooter or anything like that from 3, but I think you really like his upside there. You like his touch, and you like his hands. He it was one of the nation's leaders in dunks as well. I think you and I will both agree that we saw a dunk that shall not be named.
It was pretty,
and ended our hopes and dreams.
It was very disrespectful, would be the
It
word
wasn't.
I would use. But yeah,
It was beautiful.
no, it was a great. In basketball terms, it was great. In terms of Oregon, it was like not very nice. What he did to the Ducks there. He could have been a little kinder.
It was very unkind.
But the thing about Evan Mobley and like
Yeah.
the whole times like Oregon played him, really, it's like he doesn't need to statistically have an amazing game for him to still like dominate the game. Like because the way he played the Ducks the other day too, is like I think he only had like 10 points, but he was the difference.
Yeah, well, the other thing was like the rebounds, assists, block shots, like
that's why playing
destroying our press.
Yeah, like just playing
putting
around
the ball on the floor. Yeah, he just he has just so much basketball talent for somebody who's a legit 7 feet tall, and with the 7'5" wingspan, yeah, he's a really great prospect, and I think quite different than a lot of the centers we have seen in the last few years, and kind of like hearkening back to the time of Anthony Davis, like Karl Anthony Towns level of guy. I'm still not in the camp that thinks he's like a better prospect than either of those players. Maybe somewhere in the cat level, you'd like to see him be a little bit more aggressive. I don't think USC made that very easy for him. And he is another player who still had like a fantastic year and was a consensus like second team All-American. Won every award in the Pac-12, for instance. He had a really, really great freshman season. And I think, Oklahoma City has a chance to draft number 2. They likely would be leaning towards taking Evan Mobley.
And then we keep this rebuilding theme going because it's like Oklahoma City's got some stuff that they're rebuilding with. Houston, nah. This other team also kind of in the nah. And that's the Orlando Magic coming in at number 3.
Yeah. They're definitely, they traded everybody.
Yeah, like they're again, like they're starting from the beginning.
Yeah. Starting from the bottom, you could say. But yeah, they still, have some guys. They have some guys just all injured.
Yeah, like Jonathan Isaac, but he's
mostly injured.
Yeah.
But yeah, the player that I have them drafting and just think that he's quite a talent and also somebody that you could like play with a Markelle Fultz or like a Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, who has had a fantastic season and just another player with great awareness on both ends of the floor. Definitely cooled off as a shooter as the season progressed, but I think I still see some reason to see positive flashes in his shooting ability and at least his confidence in taking shots. Not to mention he's fantastic in transition. He just has a great eye as a passer, and then the defensive instincts have always been really impressive to me too. Just has some really nice athleticism on that end of the floor, tries really hard, able to play passing lanes. I think he's just such a smart player. The thing that always gets mentioned with him is the fact that he was a quarterback and was one of the best quarterback prospects in the nation as well. But yeah, he's been a killer as a basketball prospect for quite a while. I think people sort of fluctuated on just how talented he was as a basketball prospect. They worry a little bit about his ball handling ability. But I think at the same time, he's quite a scalable player because he's somebody that you could play next to a ball handler. And I still feel like he's somebody that you could put the ball in his hands at times and he'll have some good things happen.
And he's honestly one of the most popular players in college basketball, I'd say, this year too. Like if you ever watch SportsCenter, he's one of the more talked about guys. But yeah, he's like a big, tough, strong player that I think would be good with another guard as well.
Yes.
Playing in that kind of a backcourt. But yeah, I think for Orlando, that'd be a good direction because they are basically kind of staring at because even is it Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony, or like who are you, putting on that team to kind of build, 3 years from now? 2 years from now.
Yeah, I think the hope is they're kind of at a rebuilding process. I think maybe they'll possibly have some free agency money in the next little while as well. So that could be a possibility. But yeah, they're definitely looking for players to build around at this point, for sure. And the players that they were building around, were getting them to like 7th, 8th place. So I understand the
no,
rebuild.
it has to happen. Like, yeah, it's not like they're like, oh, like, how could you do this? It's like, well, you're getting out in the first round of the playoffs every year. But
yeah,
no, I definitely think Jalen Suggs is going to be one of the better rookies next year for sure. I definitely think he'll do well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you would think he'd be an immediate contributor, and yeah, he great player.
And then coming in at number 4, we have a team that is not used to the lottery, has not really been there much, for the last little while, and that's the Toronto Raptors coming in number 4.
It's been a while. Yeah, the Raptors are another team that is kind of, they could be seeing some new blood. Let's just say.
Because Kyle Lowry's gone for all intents and purposes, and then Siakam, obviously, there's been some stuff going on, dramatically.
Yeah.
So we'll see what this offseason presents.
You're not exactly sure about like handing the ropes to Freddie is like the lead guard, but yeah, it seems like he likely is taking over there. And they did just trade for Gary Trent Jr., who I thought was a great role player for the Portland Trailblazers, and will likely be a role player for the Raptors. But yeah, they're in need of some scoring and some firepower. And I have them taking Jaylen Green from G League Ignite. I watched every single G League Ignite game, and I think I'll get into it maybe a little bit more in the future. But Jaylen Green, it started off where it was he had a little bit of a rough start, and like especially in that first game when Nico Mannion was kind of D'ing him up, he had rough patches like here and there, but for the most part he showed some really, really good flashes. Just incredibly quick as a cutter. The athleticism always popped with him, and just his ability to get off the floor, to get to the basket, to cut without the basketball. And then it showed a lot of positives as a shooter as well. Yeah, just in terms of being able to create his own shot at times, shooting off of movement. So yeah, he it started off where it looked like Jonathan Kuminga was kind of like the go-to prospect there. And as the season progressed, Jaylen Green definitely, to me, was the better player, at least throughout that G League experience. It'll go back and forth with them as prospects, but I just think there was enough positives from Jaylen Green, and the fact that he is just such a high level, has that high level scoring potential. Defense still a concern. His playmaking, I thought, took a lot of positive movements as the season progressed. His handle is something I still worry about, and he does have some of that ability. I feel like moving away from the basket and creating space, he uses his handle pretty well. Getting to the basket is something I kind of worried about with him, just in terms of using his handle and isolation scoring. But yeah, I think he's going to be a really good off-ball player, and I think it would be really interesting to see him next to a player like Fred VanVleet.
No, definitely giving him a shooter. And yeah, from our last mock, he is up 1. So last time we had him 5, so 4. But obviously, everyone kind of has their range. Yeah. But
still in that general top 5 that most have been talking about, and I feel like that's the general consensus amongst the NBA right now, is that there are 5 players who are likely going to go in the top 5.
Yeah, just where, and then so our coming in at 5, we have a team that is becoming lottery sort of regulars, but not by choice, but by some decision making and trading, and one kind of bad luck a year ago, and that is the Golden State Warriors via the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be coming in with the 5th pick.
Yes, And with the 5th pick, I have the Warriors taking Jonathan Kuminga. I'm sure the Warriors will think about trading the pick, but who knows? They certainly do have a lot in contracts right now, but they still need some depth. I know they've been a positive right now has been the play of Jordan Poole off the bench, but yeah, I still think they definitely need depth at forward, and Kaminga would bring that. He's a really big guy. He's like, about 6'7", 6'8". I'm guessing he'll be close to 220 pounds by the time he comes to the NBA. And it is a really explosive athlete as well. And at times, it certainly tried hard. You just kind of wonder a little bit about his feel. He did show some nice passing flashes. His handle isn't terrible. But yeah, the big thing was, I think, shot selection, and then also like his shot in general. He at times would just kind of put his head down and kind of get bad angles to the rim. He didn't necessarily finish exceedingly well around the basket. Got to the free throw line quite a bit, but yeah, didn't shoot a great percentage from there. And then his 3-point shooting was a real mixed bag, and I think was in the low 20s. He is somebody that still just has this great deal of potential. I know they'll bring up draft age with him. But yeah, there were, I think, a few, I wouldn't necessarily call them red flags, but areas of concern where you kind of wonder if Jonathan Kuminga is exactly like the Patrick Williams-like prospect that many have felt. I still feel like he's at least around that range, and somewhat like, he's an intriguing 3-4 prospect. But yeah, like the shooting, I think is a lot more concerning than Patrick Williams was. And yeah, that's something where he also, like the fact that he didn't necessarily have that same level of consistency throughout his time in the G League, and finished the G League the last 3 games injured. So yeah, that it kind of stays in your mind, whatever that last sample size was.
Yeah, and especially when you think of what the NBA, like the amount of games in the NBA and how important, consistency really can be to, staying on the court at that level. But I think, Golden State, yeah, like if whoever gets to go to Golden State in these kind of situations is also kind of lucky, because the pressure's not necessarily on them either, at the beginning to be one of the better players on the team. Like, this is a place where he can get to, hopefully, he would get to learn a little bit, but obviously we don't know for sure who would be picking in this place. But just for context, we had him at number 4 in our last mock. So basically he and Jaylen Green just kind of did a swap. But again, those are 5 guys fighting for those 5 spots. I feel like the top 3 pretty locked in, and then this Kaminga Green just kind of goes back and forth depending on either like team day, what the water pressure is. Like it's a pretty close call there.
Yeah, there'll be some twists and turns.
Yeah. And now now we have those guys that you kind of, we're feeling we're going to be there. Now we're at this other part of the draft here. We're at the Detroit Pistons, again, a team that is in total kind of where do we go from here mode. What direction would you see them going?
Yeah, I'm going with Keon Johnson here. I know that it's still going to be like 6 is where it really kicks off. Like 6 is, I know that there will be people from draft Twitter that'll have their different lists and everything like that. And there still could be somebody that moves up to the top 5 from outside of Cunningham, Mobley, Suggs, Kuminga Green, or Green Kuminga, whatever you're saying. But yeah, Keon Johnson right now, I think is my odds-on favorite. He just is just a potentially special guard defender with fantastic lateral quickness and really good instincts on that end of the floor. And then I think he shows some really nice offensive flashes as well. Did not necessarily have the best game against Oregon State in their one game in the tournament, But and also had a really high turnover percentage. Still definitely is a little raw on the offensive end, needs a few things ironed out. And I wouldn't call it like he didn't necessarily have a dominant college performance, but yeah, I think some people will place that somewhat on team context, but he just has some fantastic athleticism, running, jumping. He is somebody that really stands out there. And I think he just has enough positive offensive flashes and shows some nice playmaking ability. I think the handle's workable. I think the shot's workable. I know he didn't necessarily have an outstanding shooting year, but I think he was at least able to take some of those shots.
Like 27, 28% from three. So
yeah, on a pretty small sample size, but he was at least taking them. And I think I have always just kind of liked the upside with his shooting. It always just kind of looked pretty good to me. And I think shooting is also something that's like intensely workable. And the fact that he shot 70% from the free throw line, like it's obviously not outstanding and not necessarily a great indicator of future success as a three-point shooter, but I have some faith in him there. And I have some faith in him, in his ability to finish around the basket, his body control. And I just think he has maybe like is the most like rare athlete amongst the top group. And I think that could be a definite possibility and something that I think Detroit could be looking for with the guard spot.
Definitely a lot going on that needs to happen in Detroit, but obviously staying in that same part of the country. Cleveland Cavaliers coming number 7, Tyronn Lue. Again, lots of stuff that could be needed. They kind of had the Sexland backcourt, Colin Sexton, Darius Garland doing their thing, but there's still a lot of room for, again, building kind of a culture there in Cleveland. They're coming in at number 7. Who do we have coming off the board?
Yeah, I know they took a small forward last year. I feel like they're just going to take some talent, and I feel like this guy could eventually play power forward quite a bit also. I have Franz Wagner. Now, I know to those who just watched him play against UCLA, you'll kind of be like, why in the hell do you have him here? It was a tough game for Franz, but I think his play throughout the season is a huge reason why he's moving up on draft boards. He is actually younger than quite a few of the freshmen entering this year. So yeah, he's younger than Jalen Suggs, Evan Mobley, Scottie Barnes. He just, so age plays into I would say a positive for him. He had a really nice freshman year. I felt like he made some definite strides this year. And the things that stand out about Franz are just his defensive acumen, was really great at creating events, gaining stocks, and just moving his feet on that end. He definitely needs to increase his strength, and I think that was something that you saw in this game. But yeah, I just feel like he has a really nice basketball IQ. Improved quite a bit as a shooter this year. Always had positive free throw indicators as well, but this year, for the most part, his 3-point shot was falling until today. And then I just think that he's going to be one of the more interesting draft prospects. I think he had kind of been moving up as the year has gone on. Kind of had a slow start to the year, but ended really strong for the most part. I thought he had a couple really positive games in the NCAA tournament as well. But yeah, it was a tough way to go out. But I see him just being another player on Cleveland who I think you have more of an indicator that he can shoot compared to a guy like Isaac Okoro. Not to mention he's somebody that can be somewhat of that secondary playmaker, really smart passer, and then brings a little bit to the defensive end as well. So he just offers a little more versatility. And I think somebody that NBA teams will be at least buying into is a lottery selection, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him go top 10.
Yeah, he's new. He's new into our lottery. He wasn't in there last time, but yeah, 6'9". He's got, you know, an interesting height to offensive skill level that's pretty intriguing. So definitely, I think that's what's going to get him off the board pretty early. Obviously, UCLA not the best game for him, but you know, you look at his season, there's pretty good shot indicators there. He was about 36% from three off 3.6 attempts a game. So that's not too bad. And we'll see if he can, you know, be like his brother and make a career in the league.
Yeah, I think the hope is that he will be better than his brother. That's especially if you're taking him in the lottery. So well, yeah. But yeah, Moritz was indeed a first-round pick and is now on the Boston Celtics.
And was a Michigan legend.
Indeed.
At his time there. Coming in with the 8th pick, we have the Washington Wizards. A lot going on there. You know, it's crazy. Each time you look at the team, you're like, oh, there's a lot going on there as well. You got Russell Westbrook, but like Bradley Beal, I don't know if he's obviously wanting to stick around for that much longer in this kind of situation. But there was a lecture that Bradley Beal did give to his AAU team not too long ago that was telling them things of like, hey, if you come to the NBA, you're going to have to guard me. And by the way, none of you scrubs can guard me. And I think the player you have at number 8 is not a scrub, but he's one of those guys that Bradley Beal was saying this in the vicinity.
He was directly next to him, I believe. And yes, he did play for Brad Beal Elite, played for Mont Verde. It is Moses Moody. The other thing that I think a lot of these players have in common is they had pretty unceremonious ends to the NCAA tournament. And it just shows how much stock I put into the NCAA tournament is a determinant for these players moving up or down the draft board. But yes, Moses Moody in his last 2 games was a combined 6 of 30. And he was 6 of 23 from 3. Yeah, all of his makes were 3-pointers. Or no, they were all 2s. Sorry, he was 6 of 23 from 2, 0 of 7 from 3. Yikes. Nonetheless, here are the positives of Moses Moody and why I still believe in him and why I still think the NBA is going to believe in him as well. I kind of feel like he's somebody who I think likely had I don't think he's going to have that same expectation at the NBA level. I felt like he overall this season shot really well. Not only that, like the amount of times he got to the free throw line, I just think like off of just instincts and being at the right place at the right time and also having some really positive strength, has a +6 or 7 wingspan as well. He is somebody that I just, you hear the words plug and play with Moses Moody very often. And yes, I don't feel like he is necessarily like the most instinctive passer. I also am not in love with his athleticism. I think like, you know, that maybe limits his upside to an extent, but I also think that he's just a really smart player, has some nice defensive acumen, and just is somebody that I have a lot of faith in making 3-point shots immediately in the NBA. I think he has that range, think he has that touch. And then always has just had that nice ability to, you know, finish or at least get some fouls near the basket as well. So yeah, he's a player that I think is at least going to be in the lottery range, and I wouldn't be surprised if he went top 10 as well. Yes, it was a rough ending to the season for Moses Moody, but he I think is one of the more intriguing prospects here, and I think is somebody who could even be in the fight for finishing just outside that top 5.
And if he gets selected by Washington, he will not have to guard Bradley Beal outside of practice. So, you know, that also.
But what about in practice?
Because Bradley Beal
in practice, I think he'll have to guard Bradley Beal constantly.
And just for context, if you have not seen this video of Bradley Beal, it is pretty awesome. And it's basically just him telling his AAU team how many of them will not make the NBA due to reasons of not working hard enough and not being as good as he is.
I think
In a
you're
summary, in a quick summary.
kind of missing the point a bit, but yes, it was somewhere.
Like, kind of. No, he's trying to inspire them by basically just saying, like, the NBA is cutthroat. Basically, you got two options. They're either gonna pay you and say, get out of here, or they're gonna trade you somewhere else.
Yeah, he's
It's
trying to get them to work.
Yeah.
He's trying to get them to work, and he's trying to be realistic. And yeah, I actually thought it was a great video.
No, and I liked the Bradley Beal going in, and I loved him going out because that was a great, like that was a really good, that was a really, really solid little kind of inspirational talk for hopefully a lot of young players get to watch. And then number 9, we have the Orlando Magic popping back up again, getting this pick from the Bulls. Number 9.
And you would think the Bulls have a pretty good chance of making the playoffs at this point. But yeah, I have the Orlando Magic picking for the second time, and I have them taking Scottie Barnes, who would be a Florida guy. Another player who didn't necessarily have the greatest end to his NCAA tournament run. I watched all of Scottie's NCAA tournament games, and before the game against Michigan, he had taken a combined 4 field goals and had made them all. And then was 2 of 2 from the free throw line. Against Michigan, he's 4 of 11. He took, I believe, 3 3-pointers, yes, and had a few rim out. But yeah, he's a player that teams are going to leave open in the beginning because there's just not a lot of faith in his shot. His free throw shooting, I think, went up as the season progressed as well, but still nothing to really write home about. Where you love Scottie Barnes, or where I have always loved Scottie Barnes, is I feel like he's a really versatile and intense defender, moves his feet really well, can, I think, almost defend every position, like is just somebody who's going to be very switchable. In high school, as we've mentioned, like one night he was guarding Sharif Cooper. The next night he was guarding Hunter Dickinson. Like he was somebody that I remember in the Les Schwab Invitational, them switching Scottie onto Antoine Watson, who had a huge first half against University School, and Scottie just shutting them down the second half. So yeah, he's somebody that you have faith in as a defender, has ball handling skills as well, and then is a tremendous passer. I just feel like he's just going to get it. You worry a bit about his half-court scoring. He took a very limited amount of pull-ups, didn't take tons of threes, and of course didn't make a ton of threes. The other worry I hear is about his rebounding. I don't find that to be a concern. I think that was a lot of context and where he was playing on the floor. So yeah, he's somebody who is 6'8" or 6'9", has a 7'2" or so wingspan. It was measured with a 9-foot standing reach back in June 2018 at the U17 trials for USA Basketball. And then the other thing is the character and everybody just kind of wanting to be around him and just saying great things about him. And then you see the leadership on the floor as well, like, telling players where to be, and just a great communicator on both ends. He's somebody I have a lot of faith in, and I feel like he should be in play for as high as number 6 as well, possibly even number 5. I'm a huge Scottie Barnes fan, if you haven't figured that out yet. But yeah, I still feel like he's definitely in the lottery range and will be an intriguing player and somebody I'm willing to bet on at the NBA level.
And definitely think about this Orlando too. If this were to actually transpire, you get to pair him with Jalen Suggs.
Yeah.
And, 2 guys to, start this rebuilding process.
Yeah. 2 fantastic passers. And then Scottie also maybe having a chance to play a little bit with former Florida State Seminole and Jonathan Isaac. Yeah, he's somebody that I think Orlando would be targeting, or, any team in need of some depth at forward, and somebody that I'm like, this may be crazy. I'm guessing it's not crazy. I could see him being like a 4-5 kind of level guy, and I think that's where he might excel. You want him to play next to kind of primary handler as well, and I think he'll just be a fantastic secondary playmaker. But yeah, I'm guessing he won't have all the responsibility that he had as a primary initiator at Florida State. But yeah, the other thing is he's like a tremendous passer, and I believe still maintained that like near 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Yeah, Scottie is going to be stretching the floor in one way or another. I think initially it'll be with his passing, and then the hope will be with his shooting.
Yeah.
Though that I just feel like he certainly will improve there, and at least he took some 3-pointers and wasn't like completely unwilling to shoot. So yeah, definitely struggled with his confidence there, but I just think it's something I'm willing to bet on with him.
You've heard it here for a long time. So Mike is big Scottie Barnes guy, but yeah, I think Orlando like with Jalen Suggs too would be a pretty awesome situation. Moving on to number 10, we have the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yes.
A lot of different directions. A lot of different directions they can go in as a team.
Yes, and I have them taking yet another guard. I just think they could see the possible upside play here with Jaden Springer, and yeah, I think there are certainly a number of guards in New Orleans right now with pretty uncertain futures. You heard about Lonzo Ball possibly being on the trading block. They need to worry about his extension. Eric Bledsoe, I think, is somebody that they're going to try and get rid of. As much as you like Kyra Lewis Jr., you're maybe looking for like another bigger guard to pair him with, and somebody that you could possibly put the ball in his hands as well. And I think that's Jaden Springer, who played quite a bit of point guard for Tennessee this past season. And certainly has some upside as a handler. He is somebody that I just thought had a really great freshman season. And not only that, yes, he did not necessarily take a ton of 3-pointers, but still shot well. He is kind of like an unorthodox offensive player, likes to go off take, those kind of floaters in the lane. But I just think there's some strength to build on with him. He's going to be the youngest college player in the draft, and I will be like barely 19 before his first NBA season. So yeah, he's somebody that I'm definitely willing to bet on as well. I thought he played like maybe even exceeded expectations for Tennessee. I know some people had really, really high expectations for those freshmen, but I thought they both played really well, given the circumstances. Averaged 12.5 points per game, close to 3 assists. And yeah, he just was somebody that I was really impressed with, and I'm willing to bet on. And I think New Orleans would be very interested in at this pick, this point of the draft.
And especially with Zion, you gotta try to pair him with some shooters. That's gonna have to kind of
you're hoping he'll up the 3-point rate, but yeah, I think there's reason to believe in his shooting.
But if they don't go with Jaden Springer, at number 11 we have Indiana, and this is another player that would probably actually pair pretty well in New Orleans as well. But we have him going to 11. That's Corey Kispert.
Yeah, so with Corey Kispert, obviously he's a senior. The age kind of plays there, but yeah, the thing that he brings to the table is just outstanding.
You very know what you're getting in that. Like you know what superlative skill you're getting with him.
Yeah. And yes, they have Dougie McBuckets, but I think Kispert can provide like maybe a little bit more. Not only that, but being on a rookie deal, though I don't think Dougie makes like tons of money, but yeah, nonetheless, I think Indiana could really, plug and play Corey Kispert. I still feel like he's likely going to go in the lottery. Improved a lot this year in his work off of the dribble. And he is like a terror in transition as well. Somebody who's going to shoot in a variety of ways, shoot off of motion. And the other thing is, like, I don't think he's necessarily like the defensive sieve that a player like Doug McDermott was. I think he was at least a little better in terms of like block rate and steal rate, though they're still not fantastic. But yeah, he's somebody who's like around 6'7", has put in tons of work, and this year, like, his percentages were absolutely nuts. Like he was shooting over 60% from two, nearly 46% from three, and 90% from the line.
With three makes a game. Like you're saying,
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a volume shooter and somebody that you're really happy to have off ball. But it does like a little bit more than that as well. Like not like just a shooter. He's used his strength and like ability to kind of like bully like smaller like 3s and 4s in college. I think it will be a little bit tougher in the NBA, but still somebody that I think you could really see working well as a role player at the NBA level.
No, definitely going to be interesting to see how he fits in on draft day where he ends up, because definitely I think he's going to bring that shooting day one, which is always it's a unique role in the league. Like those kind of guys that just float around. It's like they can shoot. Even like Joe Harris in Brooklyn, like that's why he's getting on the court.
Yeah.
Because
Well, yeah, I think Joe Harris does maybe like a little bit more than that, but yeah, the thing he's exceptional at is shooting, and that's what Kispert's going to do as well. I know that they're both Washington guys, so like I know that Joe Harris has been kind of an inspiration for him, and yeah, there are certainly some parallels there.
And then coming number 12, we got the Sacramento Kings.
Yes, and the player that I have Sacramento taking is somebody who I was intrigued on very early on in the season, and I'm still not exactly sure just how high his draft stock goes. He's somebody that is really raw, and you're not exactly sure all of the things he can do at this point, or if he is somebody that you're going to need to build his body. You're going to need to work on his decision making. But he shows so many flashes, and he moves really well. And that's Kai Jones out of Texas. He's a sophomore. He's from Bahamas. He's about 6'10", 6'11", with like a plus maybe like 3 or so wingspan. But he's really bouncy as well. Has had numerous moments this year where he would like have these great like finishes through traffic, and even able to grab a rebound and kind of dribble up the floor at times, making some crazy step backs and pull up jumpers. But yeah, like a lot of flashes with him. He, for the most part this season, was coming off of the bench. He started the last few games. You were hoping maybe to see a little bit more from him. But yeah, the thing that you notice with him as well is he had a relatively low rebound rate, which is kind of like a slight area for concern. And I think part of that is maybe the functional strength, but able to get steals, blocks. He is somebody that I just feel like that combination of athleticism, fluidity, and physical tools that you're really willing to work with. And I think he'll with Sacramento. I know their big man situation is something they're probably looking into. I think there's no guarantees that Marvin Bagley is part of their long-term future, and they may look to move him. Maybe they'll even look to move this pick. But Kai Jones is somebody that I think could be around this range. I'm not dead set on him being a lottery pick at this point, but he's one of my favorite big men after Evan Mobley, for sure.
Well, he's new to our lottery. He wasn't in the last one, but yeah, it's interesting too, because I know Greg Brown was the other big front court guy for Texas, but it was a pretty crowded front court. But I know Kai Jones definitely left a lot of people talking about him, and he's already declared as well.
Yeah, I for one, from when I have watched Texas, I preferred Kai Jones to Greg Brown. Greg Brown certainly does a few things very well also that I don't think get talked about enough. I think his athleticism maybe gets talked about a bit too much. Kai Jones had more dunks than Greg Brown, for instance. And yeah, like I think he uses his athleticism at least a bit more functional in some ways, whereas Greg Brown uses it very functionally, like in terms of like getting rebounds and also his defensive ability. But yeah, I feel like Kai Jones, to me, just in terms of like some of the basketball skill components, always just were much more intriguing to me than some of the stuff that Greg Brown was doing.
You always need a little upside. They're coming back in with another pick there. We got Golden State at 13.
Yes.
So you're thinking Golden State, they're gonna get Clay back, but they have this luxury. They're getting 2 lottery picks, possibly.
Possibly, yes. And in our scenario, we have them with 2 lottery picks.
Yeah, if for to follow Tankathon, yes. If in real life, there's that variability.
Yeah. And also no guarantees that Golden State is going to miss the playoffs.
A game and a half out, so it's definitely possible.
Well, no, because playing game.
Oh yeah.
See,
good old change flipping the script on the tradition
on that one. But yeah, I feel like Golden State has a good chance of making the playoffs if everybody stays healthy. But I have them going here with somebody who played high school basketball in California for Sierra Canyon and played close to the Warriors this year in Palo Alto. I have them taking Ziaire Williams. Ziaire Williams' stock seems to be all over the place, and I to put it bluntly, he had a pretty bad freshman year. I think at least tax some of that to injury. It just didn't seem to really be himself, but certainly like raw. First off, his functional strength held him back quite a bit. Was really easy to knock off balance. Also had really tough times when people would get into his handle. And then the other thing is, like, for as much as he's a renowned shot maker, he still shot 29% from 3 and wasn't necessarily like setting the world on fire there. But yeah, he definitely like was not an overall positive, I would say, for Stanford on most nights this season. He had a few flashes here and there, but I think the other things that are very positive about him, first off, his agility at his size, and then his lateral quickness. Like in terms of defense, I'm willing to buy him as somebody who's going to be able to move on the perimeter and possibly defend multiple positions. The other thing is he's a really good passer. He was like even had a triple double at one point this year. So yeah, I feel like there's upside as a playmaker. I think people are also likely to go by his pre-college sample size as well, where he had some really positive spots in the EYBL. In USA basketball, I know he had a camp where he played really well. But yeah, he is somebody that I think teams are still going to be pretty willing to bet on. And while I'm not completely certain he is like a for sure lottery pick, I think Golden State could see that upside, see his possible ability to shoot. I think he like has legitimately good touch. And then if he doesn't have to, worry so much about getting his own shot, I think that will help quite a bit as well. So yeah, I think it's somebody that they'd be willing to work with, and might even like provide some nice depth right away. It'll be about if the injuries check out, but certainly somebody with quite a bit of upside still, and somebody who I wouldn't completely write out of being a possible lottery pick.
Yeah, he definitely had a couple of huge dunks this year in the Pac-12, which you didn't see a ton of monster dunkage going on there, but we will see. Definitely interesting. He'll go possibly against his high school teammate's dad, LeBron, which you don't see too often be able to say something like that. But coming in number 14 with the Memphis Grizzlies, also possibly, depending on the caliber of this player and how he plays, also possibly what's on your shirt right there, the Memphis Hustle. Could go back and forth, but obviously The goal is to be on the main team, the Grizz, coming in number 14, finishing out the lottery. What direction do you think they're going?
Oh yeah, so I have the Memphis Grizzlies taking Jalen Johnson. He, I think, has some. There will definitely be debates over he and Scottie Barnes that there was throughout the year. There will be debates about where exactly he plays on the floor. I just think there's a lot of talent there. There's some ball handling ability, passing ability, at least some shooting potential, even if you don't necessarily love it. And as much as he has like the insanely small sample size shooting and everything like that, yeah, I don't think his shot is necessarily a guarantee. But there were some great flashes from Jalen Johnson this
He had
year.
a few games where he filled out the stat sheet.
Absolutely. But yeah, he had a few games where he was kind of a MIA. And and the other thing is the fact that he's had a few times where he has kind of left programs. I personally would not I don't know. I would need to know more information about that. I didn't feel like he quit on Duke. I totally understand where he's coming from there, and I just thought it was a kind of I think it's probably a more nuanced situation than people are even led to believe. And I think
and you have to do what's best for you to get a job. That's for him. I mean, Duke kind of wasn't going anywhere, and you got to do what's best for you to get to the next level.
Yeah, I think injuries played a factor, but yeah, he certainly had quite a few flashes. There's some really nice open court ability that he flashed. And in the half court, I think is where he struggled to an extent, but I still feel like you're willing to buy the athleticism, the passing at his size, the defensive flashes as well. So he's somebody that I know is still seems to be really high on most draft boards I see. And I think his time at Duke at least left him as still a really intriguing player. And I think among the most intriguing players in this draft class. I feel like he'll likely be in that lottery range, if not higher. I'm guessing interviews and some of the off the court things will be in intel that you collect on Jalen Johnson will be really important. I think he'll be all over teams' boards, for instance. So yeah, it'll just be about a team kind of seeing the upside with him. But I'm willing to bet that he at this point I'm fine with having him as still as a lottery pick. I believe this is exactly where we had him last time too.
Yeah, there's no change for him from
our
last.
He's and I think Memphis is kind of looking for maybe a change of pace at kind of I see him as a 4, but I think there's possibility he plays on the wing as well. And if you play him next to let's say Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson when he's healthy, those could be some really interesting lineups.
Yeah, I think he's got just a good skill level, but yeah, shooting is definitely always something in the NBA. It's you gotta be able to do. But interesting enough, when you're looking at who we have in this lottery, it's college and the 2 guys from G League Ignite. Are there any international players that are international players, not international but in playing college or
yeah
that are kind of on the radar, or someone we haven't heard too much about? But
I think there are going to be probably about maybe 3 or 4 international players taken in the first round, which I think is a great segue into saying that next week we're going to do our 15 to 30, talk about some players that we maybe haven't looked into too much. I'll give an idea that I think Usman Garuba, who plays for Real Madrid, and Josh Giddey, plays for the Adelaide 36ers in the NBL in Australia. And Alperen Şengün is somebody, he's really doing well in Turkey, playing for Besiktas. And those are at least a few guys who I think are definitely on the radar to be possible first-round picks. And I know that some people are even talking about them as being possible lottery picks as well. So yeah, those are the three guys just off the top of my head. And I'm guessing that we will be talking about them next week.
Yep, picks 15 to 30 coming at you. So definitely some more players, because definitely I look around. There's a few players that I like that are still available. So definitely.
I know one player you like.
Name names.
Chris Duarte.
Obviously, I love Chris Duarte. That's like no, I was gonna be like just pretend to be neutral, and I was just gonna say Sharif Cooper because I like his.
Sharif Cooper is a fun player.
Like, yeah, you can't not watch it. After you watch that, you're like, this guy. But 15 through 30, we will bring those teams. We will break that down next week. Anything else other than the Final Four you're kind of looking forward to on the basketball front? Well, Final Four Geico Nationals.
Yeah, obviously the NBA season is really kicking off. I did think the trade deadline was really interesting. And then we'll see what happens with the rest of the buyout market. There have been a few moves so far. We will keep you updated with the latest on the Michael Rappaport versus Kevin Durant beef. Just kidding. We don't care about that too much. But it is a beef and it is happening. And they both look ridiculous. So yeah, I just definitely watch the Final Four. If you have a chance, read the Pro Insight piece it was featuring PD Webb, Andrew Slater, Matt McKay Jr. I wrote the questions in the introduction, which I think is clearly the most important part of the article.
The strongest part. And if you want to learn more about Pro Insight too, we also will link to it in the description on both podcasts and on YouTube.
And those guys did such a great job giving a primer for this tournament and delving into some of the top prospects. So definitely give that article a look, and as well as our other Pro Insight content.
Yeah, and then watch the Final Four and watch the championship game. And then once the championship game's over, though, don't go away. Stick around, because my favorite part of college basketball, one shining moment. It's worth the wait.
It's not going to be your favorite moment this year. It's not. Because Mobley is going to be like a 2-minute piece of that is going to be different angles of that dunk.
I know. But I love it. It's inspirational. So every year I like that one.
Poor Frank.
Oh, totally. Well, hopefully he'll.
And by the way, props to Frank for trying to block that dunk.
Oh, totally.
It just wasn't happening, buddy.
And then Frank also going back on the other end too. Every time he scored, he was acting like he was like Shaq, bringing down the house. Got out of his way. And that's also something I want to
Frank
mention.
was a positive.
Yeah. And then, Shaq as well was the 22nd birthday of that Shaq dunk where he just dunks it and shoves Chris Dudley 40 rows into the stands, and then Chris Dudley pelts him with the ball. Yeah. Brilliant play.
You're drinking to that one. Love it.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of that, but yeah, great basketball coming up, and we'll be bringing you picks 15 through 30 as well. So thank you guys so much for stopping by and checking us out. As always, if you like me, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram at @Visenberg. If you like Michael, you can find him on Twitter at NBA Draft Mikey V. You like the both of us, you want to see what's going on at one time. You can't focus two different directions. You can follow us at Viseland. You want to just talk at us, you got some suggestions, ideas, thoughts, concerns, you want to share your draft picks, you can email us, viselandpod@gmail.com. And of course, if you're listening on YouTube, I want you to hit the like button. I want you to smash the subscribe so hard you need a new laptop. If you're listening to us on a podcast platform, leave us a review. We super appreciate it. It's insanely helpful in guiding others to come check us out. So 5 stars, please. Mikey, anything else from you?
We will catch you next week. And that was a great outro, Jason Visenberg.
Anytime. See you guys next week.